So in the midst of sorting out some of my paper crafts, came across some photographs where I'd taken my little circle punch and I'd just punched out images where I felt I could actually use them. So I've got quite a few of these little strips lying around. Was about to toss them, and then my mind thought, what can I make with them? So let me just show you what I've actually done. I found some this embossed paper. I just had this little strip, and when I came to place the circles over that, they did actually fit there quite nicely. So I thought, let me play with this and just make something that I could use either just as an interesting texture on the edge of a page, maybe a little tuck spot, maybe to decorate an envelope. I'm not sure yet. It could even be a little tag, but I just thought, let me play with it. So there's a couple of interesting things. This is photographic paper, so obviously it is shiny and slippery, and I wanted to ink this up a little bit, but as one probably knows, it's a little tricky doing the inside bits here. It does tend to get a little bit messy, as you can see what is happening. Anyway, I persevered and I had a plan in mind, so I'm going to show you what I've done with this. I'm just going to use this to lightly ink around the edges. In fact, I think I'll use the sides. I prefer not to have too much ink. And we'll go all the way around. I know it is looking messy at the moment, but I promise you this works really well, so just give me a second. How are you all keeping? We're having just the most glorious day today. I think it's the first really, really warm day since winter has passed and spring is emerging. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. I was out earlier doing a bit of shopping and things, and then I came home, and yeah, so I've just used the distressed ink, the walnut stain. Now I'm going to take a cotton bud, and because the paper's smooth and shiny, it hasn't allowed the ink to absorb that easily, so I am going to just use the cotton bud just to blend this. It's rather a tricky sort of size, simply because of the little piece of paper or a piece of photographic paper that I'm left with. So I'm just going to spread this around a little bit. I did have a bit of glue on the back of here, that's why I'm getting those marks where the actual distressed ink is sticking, but I'm not unhappy with that because it just creates something that's really interesting. And by doing this to the back of the photographic paper, I'm now creating a nice sort of interesting background, which is not completely white, and it will allow me just to blend it in a little bit with the color that I'm going to use of the embossed card. So you can see I'm just taking a little cotton bud just to pick up some ink and blend it over, and I think I'm going to exaggerate this glued area a little bit more, because a few dark marks always add interest. I'm not going to do both sides, just one side of each mark, so that I've got a lighter side and a dark. Yeah, almost as if the sun was shining on it. Alright, so I'm just going to spread a little bit more, and you can see that that's softened it up. So let me compare it. That's the plain white, and that's the inked edge. So that's given me a nice background where it's not as stark as it would have been if I had just used the plain photographic paper. You can see that's quite stark, and that's just actually given it a nicer tonal value. So I'm going to decide how I'm going to position this. Have a quick squiz on the back, and I think what I'm going to do is rather put the glue onto the bronzy color card. I think that might be easier. So I'm just going to use Elmer's school glue, and I'm going to run it down this line here, and then my photographic paper will pretty much sit around these circles. So I'll just give it a squirt there as well, and it will overhang the edges. So let's just see how we do here. Slide that up in position. You'll see that I'm working on an old towel here, and I like to do that because if I do have any residue of glue that spills over, I just simply turn over my card, press it down on my towel a couple of times, and then I'm able to pick up the glue. And I find that this glue dries on here pretty quickly, so I don't get myself in an awful sticky mess. I know a lot of people use book pages as a glue book, but I prefer the tile myself. Right, so I'm quite happy with that, and I'm just going to set that aside for a minute or so, let it dry, and then I will trim down the edges there. I have inked up another piece of this photographic paper here, and you'll see that it is a photographic paper, and I found this lovely little piece of card that's got music notes, and I think I'm just going to glue that here. But because I know exactly what shape this is and there's nothing overhanging the edges, I'm going to put the glue on the back of this, hoping that this glue will be strong enough for this shiny surface, but I don't see why it shouldn't. I've not actually used it on here before. Anyway, time will tell. If it doesn't, I will just go and use a tacky glue instead. Right, trying to make sure I get right to the edges because these pieces are thin. And just remember that as you're putting your glue on, it does tend to squish sideways. So if you'll have a look here, you'll see I've put the glue mostly in the center, not right up to the edges, so that I don't get a bigger mess than is necessary. And then I'm just going to line up my corner here nicely and press that down. And while that's having a minute just to grip, I'm going to pick up the first one, and just using a pair of scissors, I'm going to trim away the excess of this embossed card, like that. And I'm going to, let's turn this over so I can see correctly, trim that away. I'm happy with that actually. I think that I could actually even add it onto some music page maybe. So for this one, because I've got paper on paper, I think I'm going to just use a glue stick. I must say I do enjoy music pages. My paternal grandmother was from Australia, from Melbourne, and she was an opera singer, and in those days, in the early 1900s, when she used to sing in the UK, she used to have to get on a boat and travel for weeks to get here. And yeah, she was said to have been one of the world's up-and-coming opera singers, and had she been able to continue to sing, she would have been one of the greatest. She was sort of linked with Dame Madame Melba, so yeah, a lot of musical heritage there, so I think I've got an affinity for it. I think I'm a little bit undecided here whether I want a longer tag or a shorter one. I think I'm just going to cut this around about here, because I'm not 100% certain whether I just want to trim this and have a bit of a musical border, or maybe make a tab at the top. But that has given me the opportunity for a window there. This one I definitely want to have a longer thin strip rather than a big wide one, so I'm going to just snip this off here, and then that can be a belly band, or it could be an edge for a book. But I'm quite happy with that. I might just do a little bit of stamping on top, but I think if I'm doing the stamping, I'm going to just be using my walnut ink for that. So let the glue dry there quite nicely, and we'll move on to the next one. So I've played around with my original little pieces of ephemera, just added a few little bits and pieces. I did take a text stamp and stamp over that, but you can see that it's come up quite nicely. And this was the other one. I might just straighten that off, I'll just see how I go. But two nice little things. So this could actually be a tuck spot, a belly band, a little corner pocket, whatever you want to make of it. So that's that. The next one I want to show you is actually a fairly simple one. I, a little while ago, took all my till slips and I made a whole lot of masterboards with them, and I'll link that video below because I just like the text on them. I like the interest of the different colors. Some of them have barcodes, some of them have QR codes. They're rather interesting. And many years ago I made loads and loads and loads and loads of all these different color daisies. I've got packets and packets of them, and I'm thrilled to have them. What I did was, first of all, let me start off again. I had a rainbow ink pad, and the inks were nearly dry, and the cost of actually buying all the new inks was going to be too much. So I took pieces of book page and I just inked them up, and some of these blue ones in the pale colors like these were from our local telephone directories. We had the white pages, which are those ones. We had blue pages, and we also had yellow pages, but I don't know if I've got any of those left. So once I'd inked it, I just used my daisy punches to punch out a whole lot of daisies, and then I simply took some acrylic paint and the back of a pencil, and I went dot 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 to make all the centers. So I've taken one of my till slips here and cut them down a little bit, and for that one just simply glued on a selection of colorful daisies. And I'm not sure where I'm going to use this yet. I don't know if I want to use it in quite a modern sort of journal where I wouldn't want as much inking, or if I'd like to make it more vintagey. So I'm not going to do anything to this one just yet. I'm going to wait and see where I'm going to use it before I ink it up. But that's a very easy thing to do. So you could make yourself lovely daisy ephemera, and you could make yourself some useful bits and bobs that you could use in your journals instead of wasting the ink. Okay, so I'm just going to move this out the way, and then I'll carry on with the next one. So last year we were at a church camp, and a couple of friends and I, we were running craft activities for the group, and we had used some of the scrapbooking paper and again our nice large daisy punches, and punched out a whole lot of daisies. Some of the people were making ephemera, some were doing cards, they were all doing different things. And I don't know why I kept some of these strips. I didn't keep many, but I just kept a few. And I thought to myself, let me try and make something with this today. So if I just move these aside, I'm going to use this piece here. And I have a piece of book page which I have folded in half and glued down. And then I've just taken little bits of watercolor paint that was just residue on my paint tray, and I've just created a wash. And if I just simply glue this down in the middle of this, I've actually got quite an interesting textured background, which I think I could use for something. It's the beginning of something. I'm not going to complete this 100%. So let me put some glue on here and move that out the way while I do the glue so I don't get stuck to my board. And then I'll show you the second one that I've done also with these daisy templates. We had such fun, I must say, but the only problem we had at that particular day that we were doing the craft was that the wind picked up and we were in a gazebo, and that was a bit awkward. So for this year we've requested a lovely place indoors, and I think we're going to have lots of fun. We had the most beautiful venue, wonderful music, lots of fellowship, so it was amazing, really amazing. So that will be the beginning of maybe just a point of interest on the edge of a page. I could glue it down and make it into a little tuck spot, or I could use it as a belly band. I'm not going to do anything more with that. The next one I'm going to work a little bit further with. So what I did was, again, had another piece of that scrapbook paper where we'd punched out a whole lot of daisies, and it was this odd shape. So I glued it down onto this background card which I'd made when I was still back in South Africa, and I can link that video down below. And then I've cut around it, just leaving a little edge like that. So if I wanted to, when I was creating a page, I could use this as a page. In fact, if I had to turn it around, if this was the right hand side of a page, I could glue this down and then just maybe trim it here so that there was a little bit of gap where I could get another color of the paper underneath. But for now I'm just going to set that aside, and I have here some of these little jewel like things. I think they're called cabochons, but I ordered them online. They were fairly inexpensive. I have made them in the past using the glass beads. Now for the life of me I keep seeing them in my craft room. I've got a huge amount of them because it's one of the workshops we're doing this year at camp, but I don't know where they are right now. So you do get bigger ones, clear ones in different colors. I've glued the scrapbooking paper down, But when I look at this, it looks a little bit lost, and I don't really want to ink it because it's quite a light color. So what I'm doing for this is I'm just taking a mocha pencil crayon. I've done those two, and I'm just simply going to use the pencil crayon just to go around the inside edge of the petal part of the stamp, not a stamp, sorry, the punch, just to give it a little bit of definition. You hardly notice it, but it just ties it all together a little bit, and it's not quite as harsh as the colors that you get from the ink tend to be stronger, unless you've got something like a white linen. But I mean, to ink around the edge of all these little petals would be quite difficult. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to lay up some of these little, I'm going to call them cabochons. If I'm wrong, you can let me know in the description box below, but I think I'm correct, but I'm not sure. Okay, so let me decide how I'm going to lay these up, and then I will glue them down, maybe like that. Yeah, I'm not going to do the teeny weeny ones, but I'm just simply going to put a dot of my Elmer's glue in the middle here, because it will splodge out, and carefully turn that over and pop it in the middle. So this will be a little bit more 3D than the normal kind of ephemera that we're working with, but if you don't mind a fun junky journal which has a little bit of well, it has a little bit of bulk to it, I think is the word I'm looking for, then this is a lovely way to go. Or it could actually make rather a nice interesting cover. But I do sometimes look at the things that we waste when we're making our junk journals, and my brain says use them rather than lose them. So that's what I'm trying to do today with my ephemera. I must say it's actually been quite nice to stretch my brain a little bit, because we tend to do the same things over and over, don't we? And I think because the background of this is yellows and the browns, it's fairly neutral with just pops of colour. I have got an art journal that I work in just for myself, and this could even go in there because that's quite a bright, bold one. There we go. So that's the beginning of a nice fun page. I'm really happy with that. I did consider putting one there, but I just felt it was going to be too much. 2, 4, 6, well, I suppose 7 would work. I don't know where I'll put them now. Oh, here they are on my shelf. I could put one more, we could just see. Something like that. Now I think I like it without. I don't want it to be too heavy and overdone. Alright, so I hope that's given you an idea with these kind of scraps, and I'm going to move on to the next one now. So as I mentioned, I'd made some masterboards using till slips and stuck them all down. Then I had this lovely little die, which really is gorgeous because you get so many flowers out of it, and I used this to cut little daisies out of my till slips, and I've now taken the I've taken the part where the daisies were punched out. I can't remember negative or positive at the moment, and I've just stuck some yellow card on there, very plain at this stage. And then on the second one, I stuck this down just onto another till slip masterboard, so I'll have that as the background. I thought this could be quite a nice long tag. I have taken again a black marker in this case, because I have black here, and gone over some of these daisies but not all of them. And on this one, because the colors are yellows and brown, I'm just going to use my marker just to do some of these bigger daisies just around the inside of the petals, because as I mentioned earlier, it's really hard just to use a blending tool or your ink pad just to accentuate these a little bit, and it just gives them a little bit of definition so they don't look so lost on the page. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to just bring them to life a little bit. I must say more and more I'm using pencil crayon, because there's just a whole variety of colors. My other alternative, if I want loads of colors and I don't actually have all the inks, is that I use my Sharpie markers and just run those along the edge of things. Right, so by doing this, all I'm doing is actually bringing that sort of brown tonal value into the flower petals, and I won't do the tiny little ones. I like them to be plain and yellow. Right, so for these two I'm going to use some of the flowers that were pressed out of here. So I've made some of them into quite sort of complex multi-layer little flowers, and others just have 3 little layers. Oh, can you see that? Yeah, they're quite sweet. They're very sort of soft, gentle colors. And I have some of these lovely daisies that I had used for the previous markers. So I think on the pinky tone one, I'm going to perhaps use some of the stronger colors. Let's see how we do with them. Maybe a yellow. Yellow is nice next to purple because they're complementary colors and they pop. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. And on this one, because the colors are more sort of earth tones, I think I'm going to use the brown one and that, and maybe a greeny color one perhaps, just to cover that. Right, let me glue these down quickly and just see what they look like. I'm literally, for these ones, because I want the petals to look as though they're curling, I'm just simply putting a little dot in the center where the yellow part is. Just this little bit. I'm not going to glue it down flat. I might change my mind, but then I'll use a little glue stick and just lift the petals up. But for now, I think I'd like them to be a little bit more 3D. Oopsie, that's a bit much. Let me grab this one here, and we can just do 2 at once. So I'll glue that one down there, and that one there. And let's do the orange. I don't know about you, I go through so much glue always, but I did find a good deal the other day. I got really big bottles of Elmer's glue and some other things at one of the factory shops, and I was really delighted because I've got a good stash now. No excuse not to create. 1, 2, 3, 4. I almost feel that this one needs perhaps another little one. Maybe I'll put it a bit over that red, which is a bit glaring. So just put a little bit of that there. And then I think because these ones have quite a lot of black in them, I might just ink them up with a little bit of black ink, black soot. Let's do this one first. Yeah, that would be better. I try not to have too many different colors on a thing all at once. I just find it gets really busy and then your eye doesn't know where to go. And one thing that I can share with you, when you're painting things or you're using color, if you try and link one color into the next one, or have one color that runs as a sort of a tonal value, then you'll be okay. So for instance here, in the purple I've got red, and I've got it in this sort of pinky color, but there is a little bit of an orangey color, and then I've got yellow, and blue and pink make purple. That's why these colors actually work together, plus the fact that the yellow is the complementary color to the purple. When I was painting watercolors, not say when I paint in watercolors, I will often take one color, maybe even something like a yellow ochre, and just mix a teeny little smidgen of that into all the other colors that I'm working with in a particular area, because then I find that that actually links them quite nicely. Alright, so just by adding a little bit of definition, by inking up the edges, that's given it quite a nice pop. And I think on this one that I'm probably going to use just a few of these small little flowers. Let me find ones that stand out, like this little one. I don't want to have too much of this yellow showing through, but if I offset them slightly so that the yellow does show through a little bit, that's it. That's exactly what I want. And let's find a pinky one like that. You could, if you wanted to, just even add little pearls and things to the center of the flowers. I'm not big on fuss. I don't like bling and a lot of that sort of stuff. I like things to look nice, but I don't like them over the top. But I know that for quite a lot of it is something that they like, so that's entirely personal. Let's have a few little ones. There we go. Right, so these were things that I was going to throw away, and I'm happy that I've been able to create something with them. I'm going to just put a little bit of text over these, and then I will show you what they all look like together at the end of it. Oh no, one more step, sorry, I did forget this. I had actually found, we were throwing this away at work, it was a file folder, which you can see here, and it was just a lovely colour, so I asked if I could bring it home. And I thought if I actually glue this down onto the file folder, just leave a little bit of a colour around it, that could actually make a really nice tuck spot. So let me do that straight away before I forget. There was a reason why this was sitting at the edge of my table here. If you saw the size of my craft room, you wouldn't believe that I was able to make anything in it. But I'm very happy. I'm not complaining at all. It's just that I have to be very careful where I put things, and I'd put this just out of eyeshot, so I wasn't seeing it. Okay, so that, I love the pink with it. It's really brought it up nicely, and I won't cut down that edge until I know the size of the page that I will use this on, but I definitely think that this would make a nice tuck spot, and probably once I cut this down I will just edge it with the black soot again. Okay, so let me pack this away for now, and then I'll show you all of the things together. So here we have it, the final result, and I'm actually, oopsie, let me get this in frame for you. I'm really happy with what I've done. I did a little bit of stamping on this piece of ephemera, used some leaves and just a little circle pattern. Not sure what I'll use that for, so it's really waiting. This one, as I mentioned, I thought would make a nice little sort of tuck spot, and with this end piece might even just fold it over to the next page to make another tuck spot. So I've got two lovely ones there. This could be a belly band. I just put that one very plainly down on some dyed paper and then music paper. This little one that I started with you, I've actually just added a bit of ephemera and just did some stamping with some text. I've got a very, very fine text which actually worked really well, and I used the walnut stain for that one. Put a little image in each of those, and I think that just finishes that off nicely. And there's my split page, for want of a better description. So just using these items that I would have actually been seriously considering throwing away, I'm actually quite pleased with what I've got. I hope it's just inspired you just to give a second glance to some of the things that are in our trash baskets and see if we can make something with it, especially if you're starting out. You know, if you're starting out, you maybe don't have a lot of equipment, and this is a lovely thing to do. 2 for the price of 1. Thank you so much for joining me. Please give me a like if you've enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to my channel. Bye for now.